Hi, Phil. Thanks for coming in to have this chat with me for the Indian Sun.
My pleasure, Pradip.
Phil, you've been around the Melbourne music scene for a long time. I think you just said about 25, at least 25 years of playing.
At least 25 years playing with. I played with the band called Yalla, playing Middle Eastern dance music We played for 10. Actually, I played in the version before, which was called Faish as well, back in probably the mid 90s. And then Yalla, and then with Jadida, which is kind of a fusion group, we've been playing, I think, like 97, 98, somewhere there.
Oh, wow.
So quite a long time as well.
Yeah, yes, since the last century, so to say.
Since the last century. That makes me old, doesn't it?
Well, it's experienced.
Experience.
And you've got, just from the image, I can see all these instruments. You've got a dholak, you've got a dhol, and then you've got the oud. Those are the three we can see. And I imagine there's a whole bunch of other instruments
all
hiding
at the back. Yeah. And then there's saz here, which you can just get a glimpse at, long neck Turkish lute.
Yeah.
That, of course, is the oud you can see up the back.
Yeah.
I've got guitars, but they're just over the other side. I couldn't get everything in the shot.
Yeah.
Actually, a sitar over in the corner here.
It's a room full of instruments.
This is my music room. So
yeah.
I have instruments in every room of the house.
Yes.
They're all here, which is nice.
So, Phil, are you a Melbourneian? Were you born and brought up in Melbourne?
I am, essentially. I am. I grew up in Melbourne. I was born in country Victoria up in Swan Hill, but I've spent my whole life really, for the most part, living in Melbourne.
And have you been a musician from a very early age?
I have. I studied music. Well, I studied music. I did music at school. I did, like many young Melbourneian boys, I played, my first instrument was the drum kit, and then guitar. And my first band that I played in as a teenager was actually, I played drums. And then at some point, I think the bass player, who was kind of the leader of the band, he went, "Hey, wait a minute, you're really good on guitar. Let's put you on guitar and get another drummer." Maybe he didn't think my drumming was very good. I don't. But then I switched to guitar, and I've kind of gone down that road ever since, playing guitar, and then going to the more and more exotic with different lutes. And then to Middle Eastern lutes and Indian lutes and so forth.
So how did you get into the more Eastern sounds? Was there a time?
I was thinking about that as a teenager. I listened to a lot of Ravi Shankar and Ali Akbar Khan. I remember going and seeing them would have been the late 70s. And I love their music and used to listen to it. I didn't, have any access directly at that time to either the instruments or the musicians inside Melbourne. They were probably here, but I didn't know where to find them. So I used to tune my guitar. I would tune it to like an open tuning and experiment like that to try and get more of an Eastern sound. So I remember kind of being drawn to it. And listening, I loved listening to the long raga kind of expositions, that would go for 45 minutes and stuff and slowly build up. That kind of fitted with my temperament somehow.
And so what was the first Eastern instrument you picked up?
You'd probably say it would be a competition between the oud or the darabuka. I kind of picked them up both at the same time because I'd been playing, I'd played drums before, so I kind of went, or maybe I'll play this, but I played guitar, so the oud kind of felt right. And for a little while, it was kind of both had even amount of my attention, and then the oud kind of took over as I explored that more deeply. Having said that, around that,
did you study with someone in Melbourne?
Yeah, I studied oud initially with a man named Fuad Haraka, who's a Lebanese oud player and musician, very talented musician. He'd also studied a certain amount of Western music as well as his Arabic music. And so he would kind of explain things to me in a way that I could understand, coming from no experience at all at that time. He explained things in terms of, like just Western thinking and Western notation. And he had music, that I could read and kind of work out how to do it. And so that was really useful. I did that for a number of years initially. And then I traveled overseas. I've studied with players in Turkey and in Egypt, and then in America. There's several virtuoso players who live in America now. And so I've kind of done it that way. I've had to go to different exotic places in the world, which has been wonderful, to find these teachers. And now I'm actually studying again. I'm studying with a Persian teacher, but with the beauty of technology and Zoom, I'm studying. The teacher is actually in Iran. And, I'm able to study from this very room. So that's been really good. I've been doing that the past year or so.
So what instrument?
That's playing the oud.
Oud, yeah.
That's all been with the oud. I did do to continue on the percussion side of things. I studied I started playing pakawaj mainly to accompany the kirtan. I went to one of the ashrams in Melbourne, and I could see they played, and we did the chanting, and I could see the drums. And one day we were doing they used to do these long chanting saptas that would go for like a week, all day and night, continuous kirtan. And one day I was sitting there, and I'd sort of been listening to the beats they played, taking it in and thinking, I could probably do that maybe, with no knowledge really. And then one time the drummer didn't come. So I bravely just got up and sat myself down at the drum and started playing, only to realize, because I'd never played a drum with double-headed drum with, right hand on one end and left hand on the other. It was it was much harder than I anticipated. Yeah. And I probably made more of a mess of it than anything at that time. But I went on to study it and have lessons in it, and actually go and do some intensive workshops in America. And then I've since done some study in India, an ashram there with a, like virtuosic mridangam player actually. And that's been a great help to pursue.
That's quite amazing. Because the Carnatic, like mridangam being a southern instrument, and I'm told that the Carnatic system is even more complex than the Hindustani.
Yeah, well, what I've done is mainly the Hindustani. I've witnessed the Carnatic, but I haven't tried to play it. I mean, I love it. I remember seeing Subramaniam, the violin player. He had the mridangam player. He had the gatam player, the clay pot.
Yes.
And I'm like amazed, watching those guys play. It's incredible. Yeah, I love it.
It's and also very odd meters they follow, don't they?
Yeah. Sometimes when I can't, I'm just trying to hear it, and you see them, counting that on their hands, and that's the only way I can keep track and find where the meter is. Yeah. I remember going to Kerala, and then they have the Tayams, which is this kind of festivals that take place in the middle of the night, go on all night, and then they have the drum ensembles, but also those instruments. They like pipes, very loud kind of horns and pipes. I was trying to sort of count the percussionists, the drum ensembles, like, what sort of timing are they going? Then after a while, I just gave up and went, Yeah. I play with Sarita.
Yes.
And, we've been doing some, some of the traditional ragas together. I play them on the oud and she plays them on the sitar. And I have the same problem when we're doing that, just following, it can be a 16-beat pattern or I'm used to the unusual meters from Turkish and Arabic music, but I find the Indian ones, because they can be very slow and very long, I find that adds another complexity, just feeling that and having a sense of where the one's going to come back and all that kind of stuff. And, of course, the melodies often don't start at the one. They start towards the end of the song and stuff like that. But I love it. I find it very interesting.
And you also you've also got the dhol and the dholak. So you also delved a bit into Punjabi percussive music.
Yeah, so I played, I got that to play sort of for fun, really, initially. Actually, initially to play for my wife, Harb, for her. She had, I think it was a bhangra party one year. And I thought, well, what better way? I was doing the DJing, so I had the set lists all planned. I thought, well, this is how to bring this to life. And I thought, we've got to have, the guy playing it in the room. And, such a loud instrument too. You can have the music up loud and it cuts through.
Yes.
But since then, I've had an occasion, at least one occasion, where I've been told, I've been going to a Punjabi wedding and I've been told put the drum in the car, and not really thought about it, and then find myself leading the wedding procession, and I'm the only, often the only white guy in the room, not Indian, and it's quite a surreal kind of experience. And I wouldn't say, I can do some basic bhangra kind of rhythms, but not to the level that I've seen, the masterful doing them.
Yeah, it's an amazing instrument, and it's loud, it's festive, and the Punjabis love it. They just start getting it,
Yeah. As soon as they hear it, I love it. Yeah. When you have a big Punjabi wedding, and as soon as it starts, they're all up off the dance floor, up onto the dance floor straight away. They don't hesitate. It doesn't take much to get them up.
No. Yeah, it's interesting. And in India, basically, drum ensembles are very much part of Indian culture, especially during religious festivals and stuff. And I come from eastern part of India. I come from Kolkata, Bengal. And then during the pujas, we have what we call the dhak, which is a bit like a dholak. And then you have ensembles like 8-piece, 10-piece, 20-piece, playing percussion.
And it's amazing sound when you've got that many drummers playing together. I've heard it mainly in ashrams and things. Yeah. When they're doing the pujas and they have all the drums and the bells and everything going at once.
Yes.
It's definitely.
Yeah, and you could, even in the crowded cities, noisy Indian cities like Kolkata, you could hear them coming from a mile away, the drum ensemble. Yeah. Cut through the traffic,
Yeah. I remember a similar thing actually in Alexandria in Egypt, sort of on the Mediterranean coast. And we were just there for at one point, this is a while, 20 years ago or more. And suddenly we hear all this drumming and loud, the same sort of thing out in the street. And it's a wedding. And before we know, we stop to watch the wedding, and then, they invite us in and want us to come up and dance. And I remember my wife was up on the, with the wedding party dancing, and we'd only been there, they're so, like in India, so hospitable and welcoming,
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So also, Phil, you've also done a degree in music at Monash, I believe.
Well, I did undergraduate studies at the VCA, the College of the Arts, and at that time I did initially classical guitar. That's what I did after school, and that was kind of my only option. And you couldn't do. I don't even know whether they had a kind of world music or, like music from different cultures at that time in the unis. And so I did 5 years. I did an undergraduate and then a postgraduate in classical guitar. And then later I've done a master's degree at Monash in oud, sort of examining and specializing in studying the different ornamentation and embellishment that are used in oud playing, a bit like what is used in Indian music and Persian music and, or Eastern music really is based on the same kind of idea of more of a sort of monophonic melodic structure, but with lots of embellishment and ornamentation that it's a never-ending process learning what you can put in and add and how to make the music just that little bit more sweet, put more nuance into it. But yeah, that was my last formal study, and then I've studied with various, oud masters. These.
Yeah, and you also teach as well, don't you? You've got students, and you teach various instruments.
Yeah. I teach oud. Funnily enough, there's not so many students in Melbourne, but I do teach oud to a few students. But my kind of bread and butter, if you like, of teaching is I teach in a school, teaching guitar, piano, and drums, and a little bit of ukulele, but mainly guitar and piano. And drums.
I see. Primary and secondary, or? At the moment, I'm exclusively just doing primary school. But for a long time, I was in a secondary school and teaching students, which was different because I was teaching students up to VCE, school, finishing school level. And so they were doing quite, it was more complicated. They were doing, and now you can do a lot of popular music. So they were doing, Carlos Santana and Jimi Hendrix and stuff like that. They would be doing these complicated guitar solos. So I had to, kept me practicing. But now with doing primary, I find it's more about inspiring kids, like often it's their first experience of learning music. So I think my job there is more to inspire, to give them the passion, and so really I'm just trying to share my passion. Teaching them obviously, but, I want them to be, I don't want to, like you hear those stories of people who, I heard so many stories of people who, they were made to do piano, and as soon as they could, they gave it up and, because they hated it by the time they'd been doing it for 5 or 6 years, Yeah.
But I try and instill a love of it and love of music.
Yeah. I think that's the main thing. And I think if you love something, then learning it, no matter how hard it is, it's worth it, right?
Yeah, well, that's where the kind of the impetus to kind of you want to get better at it if you're loving it, and then it's easy. I've learned from experience, like trying to teach. Probably when I first taught, I would go, okay, we're doing it by the book and we're doing this, and this, and kids would be kind of like, struggling, bored, wouldn't be practicing, and I'd be trying to make them practice. But then, you learn that if you get them inspired, they can't help it. Then I hear from the parents that they come home and they don't have to do anything. The kid just goes home and jumps on the piano and starts playing, and they do their practice over and over. That's great for the kids, and it's great. That's what the parents love to see as well. So it makes my job easier as well,
Yeah. So you've been, so obviously in the last year and a half, couple of years, owing to the pandemic, you've had to teach online, right?
Yeah. Well, I do a little. I have actually, it's a surprising number of students, but I have. There's a limited number of students at my school. Who, they're kids of, I don't know, healthcare workers or whatever.
Yep, essentials.
So there's probably only 20 kids at school. This is a school of 500 kids.
Yeah.
There's probably only 20 kids who are attending school at the most, but probably 10 or 15 of them are actually my students.
Oh, amazing.
So I teach them at school, but then the rest, I do a lot of online teaching, which can be a little exhausting, just spending that much time on Zoom, like spending 4 or 5 hours on Zoom.
Yeah.
And it was funny sitting down to talk to you. I was like, don't I need an instrument? I'm so used to having the instrument in my hand or the piano in front. So it's kind of a strange way, a pleasant, different thing to do, to
Absolutely.
talk to.
And how do the kids react? Like, do you find that it is a bit more challenging to keep the kids attentive, keep them glued to lesson?
Yeah, it's very interesting, actually. I've been kind of contemplating that, because I found that there's certain kids who seem to do better, or some even better, because when they're at school, I take them out of class and they come and have their individual music lesson. But they can be a little bit like distracted. They can be still thinking about what they came out of or what they're going to do next, something. Whereas when they're at home, sometimes I've got some, especially some of the older kids, who they're really focused. I don't know, like they've actually developed this ability to really, like, there's no other distraction, just get the work done, And probably, generally speaking, the kids who are more self-motivated and self-driven and have their own ability to concentrate do at least as well as they would otherwise. They don't suffer. It's the kids who need to be brought back a lot, get distracted a lot. Yeah. When they're online and I'm not actually in the room with them, or when they're online and maybe they see things pop up on their computer, they can more easily be distracted, or even just by things in the room, because they're at home. It's harder for them to make that connection that they're actually in their music lesson, because they might be sitting in their bedroom at home, But I found generally it's surprising how well kids are very adaptable,
Interesting.
They probably I found last year towards the end of the lockdowns, there was kind of this fatigue that set in, and especially when we knew we were coming out of lockdown, they'd forget their lessons, all sorts of things would happen. But now I actually feel like they're kind of, I don't know if it's a good thing, they're maybe more accepting that this is part of what's happening now. And then they're actually like focusing better and doing actually the job really well.
Amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. So I think, I guess it's something that all Melbourneians have had to kind of accept, that, we've spent a lot of time in lockdowns. And I think children, I imagine, have maybe they have coped with it better than us adults. I don't know,
Yeah. Hard to tell sometimes. Yeah.
And of course, yeah. And of course, your concerts. I remember watching you guys. You guys all played with Sarita. That I think between lockdown 4 and 5, we had a little gap.
We had a little window, and we were able. I think initially they said we could have. This was at the Boat.
Yes.
For Sarita's concert for her father, where she brought a big group of 15 musicians and dancers together.
Yes.
Initially it was online. Well, we did the same concert the year before for her father's birthday, and that was totally in lockdown, but we were able to be in the room together to perform. And that, similar to this time, actually, we had to be socially distanced on stage. that was a bit of a strategic thing as well, just the places to try and follow the guidelines. But this time we were told we could have 50 audience members. This was in a room that could hold 200.
Yeah.
And quite late, like just a couple of days before, they said they opened it up a bit more and said, I think we could have 100. So suddenly we had, another 50 tickets available very last minute, which got snapped up.
Yes.
So yeah, that was probably might be the last live performance I've done.
I watched it online. So I bought because I was busy that day. So I watched you guys online, and I took some screenshots and I sent it to Sarita.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah.
So that was your last gig, is it?
I think that was the last one. I've done one with Jadida. Did one, and it might have been in that same gap, whether it was before or after. I'm not sure, before or after the Sarita, but around that time, we did one at a place called the Bar Next Door in Northcote, and then we've had gigs booked because that was kind of a regular gig, and we've had regular gigs booked. And remember when we came out of lockdown and we went back into lockdown?
Yes.
And we were coming out and then we weren't coming out. We'd have gigs booked and then they'd be cancelled and booked and cancelled and booked and cancelled and booked. And it, just about drives you crazy because you literally get ready. You spend, I remember for the last one, spending the week. We had one, they had a thing down near me, down in Clayton, I think it is. They were doing a thing where they did an outdoor cinema. They thought, well, this is good for, we're social distancing. We'll do outdoor cinema. And they had live bands before each night. And we actually prepared for that, and we prepared. And the funny thing it wasn't the COVID that stopped us. It was one Saturday when we just had severe weather the whole day. And it rained. It literally rained the whole time, and then really strong winds. And, again, we'd practice, as you do, you practice and you prepare.
Yes.
And then on the day, it was only cancelled like 2 p.m. or something. And it was for 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
So we'd actually rehearsed on the day. We were about to drive from the rehearsal to the gig, and then they said it's cancelled. So again, we prepare. This, that we prepare for the gig, and then you practice, and then you can't do it. I remember for one, I'd been practicing, and it was the first week back at school, so it would have been July, just before we went into lockdown.
Yeah,
and I sort of was gearing myself up. My first week back, it's always a bit like I feel a bit tired from getting back used in the swing of teaching a full week of teaching. And then I had the gig at the end of the week, and I thought, I can do this. And then on the Thursday night, the city went into lockdown, and suddenly it was like my brain went into neutral.
Yeah.
I had nothing, no more teaching, no gig.
Yeah.
And I was so kind of geared up in my mind. But then it was just, I just was spinning in neutral then. There was nothing.
It has been a difficult time for musicians, and I guess all sorts of live performers, theatre, comedy, everything. So how are you staying in touch with your bandmates? Have you tried using things like, live, like rehearsing using Zoom? I know there's a whole bunch of latency problems with that, isn't there?
The latency problem prevents that from really working. We've done a couple of things. We did with Jadida, last year we did some of those things where what we did was, because the other thing we'd done with Jadida was in March last year, we were about to launch, we'd done a video launch because we did a video of one of the tracks from our new album, and we were about to launch our latest record, and it's actually, we did a vinyl. We've actually done the first time I've ever done a vinyl release. And we were quite excited because we,
Yes.
had done a vinyl release. And then that first lockdown in last year happened just like the week before our launch date. And so everything's been put back. Still hasn't happened. We've got a stack of records. But what we did was we each played, in our homes, played along to certain tracks from the record and then put that together. Paul Holloman, who's kind of a bit more clever with the computer than I am, took each track and put it all together, pieced it all together. And so we did a few releases that way where we just did we'd all recorded it on Zoom, but we just, individually did the tracks and put it together. We've done a few things like rehearsing that way where I might have an idea and I record it, then I send it to the other guys and then they might put something and send it back, but nothing. We certainly can't really rehearse in real time because of it's only about half a second of latency, but by the time I send it to you and then you send it back to me, by the time it's coming forwards, you can't play in time with each other. Yes,
yeah. That's definitely one of the limitations of online technology. And I was reading that they are thinking, probably not now, but they're thinking on one of the things that they might start allowing people to do is some venues might be able to have, I think, up to 5 people to do a live stream. So would you be doing something like that if that opportunity arose, where you could go to a venue, you and maybe a few other people, musicians, and then...
So the musicians could be in the venue and do a live stream. Well, that's what we did with Sarita's birthday the year before. So in 2020, we did that. And so we had not as many as this year, but we had maybe 10 or 12 musicians. And we could actually be in the room and we had quite a big space and we had a number of cameras and stuff. And we were able to do that. And that actually worked quite well. So, I'd probably, if we could do that, we probably would do that. It's a bit hard to, you can't make money doing it that way, but not really. I mean, you can in that you can do, and the Bike has done this where they do online concerts and then you advertise and sell tickets, but it's limited in how you can do it, and it certainly doesn't have the same thing. What was good about the concert with Sarita this year was even with a limited audience, you still felt like you were performing to the audience and you had an audience there. Quite hard I remember doing the live stream to no audience and you're kind of playing as a band. You're getting the energy of the band, but nothing's coming back from the and you finish the song, you finish the song and there'd be silence. It was kind of a slightly surreal kind of experience. And then you'd have to look for, maybe they'd read out some of the things people would comments
That's right.
or something. But it's, that would be good. And they are talking about, of course, eventually we be able to have, if you're fully vaccinated, you might be able to. And we've had a few times when we've had, limited numbers in the audience, but it's hard to, do a live performance when you could only have like 10 or 20 people in the room. It's hard to, it's because, it's a lot of work to, set it, firstly rehearse and prepare, but then to take everything, go to the venue, set up, do the check, all that sort of stuff, and then perform if you only have kind of 15 people there.
It's hard. All that energy build up and you're not getting a lot back.
And then, as much as the energy in the room, and then, of course, if the venue can't afford to pay you then, because they're not making any money.
That's right.
So it's a tricky one. That one. But hopefully we'll be back.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, obviously, we none of us know what's going to happen because we're all kind of in the same boat with regard, regarding the uncertainty. But how do you feel like maybe 2022, early 2022, we are going to see a bit of a change in the live music landscape in Melbourne? Like, perhaps there'll be situations where there'll be concerts where everyone is fully vaccinated, the musicians, the audience, and something like that could start to happen. Do you see something like that?
Yeah, I think that could start to happen. And we'll probably still do some of the live streaming things. I think will probably keep happening because that's kind of been set up. Everyone's got all the equipment now from doing the live stream things. For instance, like Harb and I we were doing kirtan online because we have a regular group that we would play with normally that we can't play with at the moment. And last year we did that for quite a long time. We did it every week, which was it was good in that it went to those people and it was a commitment and everything. What we didn't get was, of course, all the voices in the room singing. It was only up, but it was still nice to be able to share that. We haven't done that this year. We're lucky that two musicians in the house, we can play music together at least. At least we can do that. I do a little bit sometimes with just some drum loops and stuff, but I don't really like doing that. Sometimes I actually play my own drum part and then play oud with it or something, and I might put that on Facebook or something. But generally, it's a funny time as a musician, and one of the things I've made use of the time to do is have to do my own study, and that's where I've been doing this Persian music study with a teacher from Iran, and I've been meeting up on Zoom every week, and that's been really good. So I feel like I'm productive. Not that I feel like I have to be doing something. I've also been catching up on some good movies at the same time. So not feeling like it's always got to, like if I'm not performing, I've got to be educating myself or doing something. There's a bit of that, but also I think it's, you've got to accept the situation of the time and look after yourself the best way you can, fulfill what your needs are. Some of mine are just playing music and doing new stuff, and that's where the lessons have been really useful, and just exploring other things online. I've been doing recently I was doing some African, what was it called? Desert guitar online, and learning. There's like Tunari Wen and some of the African guitar styles, which again, really sits with my sensibility. I think what I was talking at the beginning about the Indian music and that the way they slowly build up the ragas, and similar in Middle Eastern music, the way they do what they call the taksim, which is like that. At the beginning, where it kind of builds up and can be quite slow, but kind of draws you in. Music that draws you in rather than so much music that kind of hits you over the head, like more like perhaps pop music, punk rock, designed to kind of, you just have to be there and it'll whack you, I'm probably more the other way. I like to be drawn into music and often I play a lot of improvised music that is like that. It draws me into myself, sometimes.
Amazing. Yeah, it was really great chatting with you, Phil. It was.
It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. I'd actually written down a whole lot of things and I didn't say any of them, but that's fine.
That's right. Yeah, we'll have more chats, and definitely we are we're really excited to see what you'll be doing once we get back to attending live gigs.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yes, can't wait.
And best of luck with your healing of your foot as well.
Yes. I think that'll probably happen sooner than the gigs.
Yeah, I suspect so. Well, this is a good time. But if you look at it on the bright side, this is probably a good time to
have an injury.
If you're going to have to be kind of stuck at home for a bit, this is a good time for it to be.
Indeed. Thanks, Phil.